Good evening, Marc Lowe in Tokyo, and I just thought, I haven't done a proper talk in a while, and lots been going on in terms of music, live shows, writing as well, and I just thought I would say a few things. I just feel like doing that. This week I actually had a couple of days off because of one of the universities where I'm working has a festival for the students. So for those couple of days I was actually focused on writing. And I'm writing a new text about this Dark Shroud. And actually earlier this year, I wrote a kind of an essay, a long essay, book-length essay almost, called Without End or Beginning, because there was an album without beginning or end. So I flipped that, made it without end or beginning. It's not about the album at all. It's a continuous narrative, isn't it? Where does it start? Well, that narrative started with my name and place of birth, and then goes from that point over to the time I returned to Japan and started making music again around 2014 and early 15 with my band Chattering Men, and I was the lead vocalist for that band. And then how that progressed on through my own band, Glass Gecko. Or breakup, other projects I had done briefly, and then it sort of moves quickly through the intervening years in Fukuoka, where I was working with Logic and doing solo music early on, you could say, I guess, with the keyboard as well as with the guitar. And it kind of quickly goes through or breezes over this Dark Shroud project, and including the duo project with Joe Shotaro on bass, my friend and collaborator. In 2019, and moves essentially on to 2020 after coming to Tokyo during the first wave of COVID and beyond, and the music I made and the themes that I focused on and those kinds of things up through earlier this year. And it actually kind of ends with, well, I just actually revived this Dark Shroud kind of thing. So, although it's been, like half a year or even less, I'm not sure exactly, this Dark Shroud, maybe around March or early April or something, I started playing around in Logic. I think it was April. And then ended up with the Vanity album, followed fairly quickly by the album 9, which is 9 tracks of rearranged earlier songs, like things like Black Nail. The dial is in the bathroom.
Well, you were a sad man, you were hardly there. You used up your lives, well, you used to care. As they came at night,
fleshy air. And then I started doing shows in Tokyo as this Dark Shroud, and I talked about that on this page, and I even created a kind of documentary, right? But I want to write about that in some more detail and cover aspects of it that I have not yet kind of discussed via YouTube or anywhere, in writing form or in any other form, and to go into some detail really about, specifically, if you will, about this Dark Shroud and where it's going from now as well, because it's kind of in a strange place. I guess you could say that I am kind of in a strange or new for me place, which is where I like to be always, in a strange or new place for me, where it's kind of exciting and it's a joker card, right? Creatively, that's the best way for me, I found, to be creative and to create and to be excited and have new ideas coming. So in this talk, I don't want to just talk about this Dark Shroud or the book, the essay length book that I'm writing. And by the way, the earlier essay, I'll put a link to it, has been serialized online on my blog. Or I created a blog actually in order to do that. And that's basically, apart from one or two other entries that were not directly related, it's basically just June, July of this year, I serialized that essay. And the final entry was on July 28th. And since then, actually at that point, the last solo album I had produced was Solitude. And I had just finished also this Dark Shroud 9. And so from that point on, I've done a number of other things, including live things. And in terms of this Dark Shroud, I wrote and recorded The Signs Were There, the one with the cover that looks like the sky is on fire. And actually that was a sky that looked like it was on fire. And I further kind of played with the color a little bit to make it even more intense looking. But that's actually the actual sky that I took a photo of. The Signs Were There. And that completed, in a way, a trilogy of albums for this Dark Shroud 2023. And since that point, I've done some shows, and some of them have been quite improvisational. And through those improvisations, frequently using background from some of this Dark Shroud material from this year, or other things from other albums that I've since created and produced and published under my own name, which I'll talk about a little bit here. So from those, I've got some live recordings. I recently released this Dark Shroud's, I think I called it Summer 2023, Live Summer 2023, something like that. It's the Fukuoka Yutero show that I did this past summer in August. I went back during the Obon season because I head off of university. That's my summer vacation. And I did a large multimedia event, which actually, on this page, both the performance itself and I did some kind of documentary-like videos showing some of the background stuff, the rehearsals and so on, and talking about it. And then also some of the shows I played post Yutero in September in Tokyo as this Dark Shroud. And those shows also are on this page. So those recordings, just to finish up with this Dark Shroud, I also assembled a I guess if it were a CD, thinking in those terms, like 70 minutes each, 2 halves. They're both exactly, or almost exactly 70 minutes, 25 tracks in total. It's a kind of summary overview of the 3 LPs from this year with some additional kind of B-sides, alternate versions of things that were not released on the 3 LPs, and 2 live tracks that were not included on the live release from Fukuoka. There were actually 2 additional tracks on there. These are from a different show that were not published in audio form anywhere else. So I talked on this page already about the David Bowie tribute, the One Outside tribute, that album from 1995, one of my favorites, and the Leon sessions, unofficial, not officially released, but available on YouTube and other places actually. They were improvisatory sessions which took place in 1994 and 1995, David Bowie and his bandmates, and they actually created the frame story concept for the Outside album, and also some of those pieces were re-recorded or excerpted and used on the album, but pretty much the sessions in full have never been released officially. So I did my tribute to that, and a bit of the Minotaur piece, which that too originally had been released at the beginning of this year as a seg, or it was a 5-minute track only, and I took parts of that and I actually rearranged it and expanded the mix and added some bits of a track called Oh Ramona, Where Has the Future Gone, which is included on the latest, or the final This Dark Shroud, The Signs Were There album, because that was improvised, and I started singing about Ramona and the Minotaur, and actually that also sparked, if you will, the Outside project, which was developed, and there's some other things on there too, like a long improv based on the chords from Strangers When We Meet, and some other things, but I won't talk too much about that here. I believe I spoke a little bit about that. Actually, I haven't spoken about it. I spoke about the fact that I was going to do it and that the anniversary of the album was coming up. That's right. And I actually included, interestingly, some of that talk in the background of the lengthy extended Minotaur piece. The LP, it's basically an LP, a short LP. It's going to be an EP, but it ended up 40 minutes or so. Lost in the Minotaur's Lair, I think is the title I used. Labyrinth or Lair. And so it includes that with bits from the This Dark Shroud improv used in a different way. I made an album, which actually the idea for it started with, I wanted to re-record Non-Entity, which is a track that appears on the live This Dark Shroud. I performed it live at Utero. I performed it at Neppo as well, and in Tokyo. And but I hadn't recorded it in a studio version.
That I'm fading out of sight, and where the echoes in my eyes of all that used to be, yeah, I keep burning down all these ashes and debris, and that's left of me.
And this keyboard behind me, this 88 key Korg, which was, it's actually still a fairly recent acquisition. I hadn't used it yet. When I played at Utero, I used the house keyboard. It was 88 key. And later at Nepal, I used 88 key keyboard. And I thought, this thing's great, you know. I've been using a 49 key Yamaha MX synth keyboard for years and years, since Laughing Moon, my project of 2017. I think I started using the keyboard in 2018. I bought my first mini Korg Nano Key in 2017 for programming. And I just thought, maybe it's 2023, maybe I can splurge on an 88, and this doesn't have a synth in it. It's just piano and some other sounds, but basically it's piano, and of course it can be also MIDI control USB connector, so I can record with it, which not just piano, but whatever sounds I want. But anyway, I wanted to do Non-Entity, which is a piano-based arrangement I did. It's on Solitude. That was performed kind of live in my room using a speaker and singing and just picking that up live, so to speak. I wanted to do a proper version with MIDI and separation of voice and keys. So I did that using the Korg for the first time. And also I did an improvisation based on the chords on the Korg. And then I ended up creating different versions from those recordings. I have a sort of raw recording, a raw version of piano voice with the separation. Then I have a version with the improv and the vocals on top of that. So that's a kind of abstract version with the voice. And then I used just the improv, which was kind of layered and mixed and arranged. With no vocals, and that became an instrumental. So that album then became the second in a sequence of 3, starting with Solitude, and then the second, I called it Faded Out of Sight, which actually, there's a lyric in the original Non-Entity. That song was actually a B-side by Trent Reznor or Nine Inch Nails, which totally different arrangement, band arrangement, kind of heavy with drums and stuff. Heavy drums and electric guitars and heavier sounding vocals, and my version's piano, so I did the piano version, like I say, with the MIDI. And fading, I'm afraid I'm fading out of sight, the original, and my version I used the past tense, faded out of sight, so I called the album Faded Out of Sight. Was as well maybe a documentary, but yet forward into the 20th century continues in silent films in the 1920s. The act itself is the reason for doing it, and the end product is for oneself and not for anyone else. And then I was in a weird mood one night and having trouble with my mouth because apparently I've been clenching my jaw. I guess I still am, maybe. I don't know what's going on with that, but and in some pain, and it was kind of crappy, and I did this spoken word bits, like I say, kind of an unofficial talk, and that's on my YouTube page, and I took those samples, used them in different ways, and put an ambient backing to it, and then some beats, and it became a piece called 0 equals Infinity. I had also, around the same time, I went to a festival in Yokohama where there was a dragon festival for the Chinese New Year, and I recorded kind of field recording type things. I did video and had the audio from the dragon festival, so I put that in as backing, and I used the piano improv from Strangers When We Improv, actually, from the Minotaur project, and added some beats and mixed them together, and that became another long piece. So you had 0 Infinity in this piece, and then a third track on there, and they're all very long, kind of long ambient pieces, but they all have some kind of beats. I had done another kind of I had done recordings of a friend, goes and a collaborator, Noda, Kohei Noda, and his solo project he calls Katakamuii, and you'll see his name on some of my other solo things from recent days, where his guitar is actually on 2 tracks from Beyond the Body, which I released earlier this year under Marc Lowe, and this was a kind of, I had recorded a number of his live shows, and I kind of used some of those as backing and added my own piano and added beats and added some other things to make it sound as if we had recorded it together. And I layered it with some other ambient backing that actually comes from earlier this year in a new way, 30 minutes. So 3 long pieces. And I called that Palimpsest 3 Future Phantoms. Okay, so I've talked about all that. I mentioned that I'm writing this new essay. I mentioned the earlier essay, which is on my Blogspot page, Marc Lowe Blogspot. And that talks about, like I say, a lot of history and some details about recordings from 2020 until this year, up until July, till the point where I just started talking about the newer things. And of course, other stories and so on. And a bit of kind of, I, have a creative writing background, not just writing sort of essays or academic papers, which I've done and do sometimes. But I was a fiction writer, and so I also, there are some elements of there that are a bit creative too, and a bit philosophical and so on. If anyone's interested in that essay, it's on the Blogspot page, Marc Lowe, Blogspot. And you can read that. Now, the new essay will focus, like I say, on this Dark Shroud, some of the details that were left out, some of the chronology, a bit more about my expand, because actually the song Black Nail includes the line This Dark Shroud, and I talk for the first time in a way, really, anywhere about how I actually composed, how and why, and how those lyrics came about, because they actually became, right? That's how I got the name for the project, and so on. Well, you can read the essay when it's finished. I won't talk about that now here in too much detail. What else do I want to say tonight? There's one more in terms of music album I have since this part 3 of this trilogy in Phantoms completed. And recently I put an improvisation from my room here. I'm over on my bed with the calculator, the chord calculator, kind of synth pad. You can loop it and you can change the tempo and layer, and it has all kinds of sounds in it, drums and whatever. I was experimenting with that and my kind of, analog noise box.
でもさ、自分の大事にしないと大事にできない人ってさ、自分が大事にできない人のことも大事にできるわけないだけ。
So I did that kind of freeform improv, and I had a spoken word thing that I had done, and I layered that on top of that. And I released, and I said it's called, Unlock the Cage. I did. Well, that was actually the impetus for this new LP, but I didn't end up using that track at all in that form. Ultimately, it's not going on there. And by the way, I haven't yet released anything from that LP other than the bits that were used in Unlock the Cage, but I actually reapplied those elements very differently. If you've heard that and you hear the album, you'll maybe recognize the spoken word part, and you'll recognize some of those elements, but they're used differently in different ways, and different titles to the tracks as well, and some other things, obviously. That album will include a brand new mix of, I think it was 2018, maybe 19, I think it was 2018, perhaps. I recorded a version of I'm Afraid of Americans, and that version, as Marc Lowe, is on one of my Bowie compilations that puts together some of the older ones. I think it's called Slip Away or something. And it includes I'm Afraid of Americans. Well, I was listening to the 1997 EP that Trent Reznor and David Bowie, I guess you could say, released. It was an EP of Trent Reznor remixes with some collaborations on it. One was, I think, Ice Cube, the hip-hop rap artist. And one version is like a faux tech mix, which is actually my least favorite drum and bass mix. It's kind of corny. But Reznor does some kind of glitchy mixes on that EP. And I was listening, and actually the Ice Cube version actually kind of hit me a certain way because of kind of things he's saying about America. And I was thinking, well, the more things change, And it gets a little political in my version with Gaza and all these things going on now. I don't want to talk about politics. Let's talk much, but it's on my mind. And so I remixed my own version. I was actually between classes. I had like a long break, between some of my classes, and I was with my computer. I didn't add any new elements per se. I had the old version in Logic on my computer with me, and because I had been listening to the Reznor thing, I was inspired. And so it's got the vocals on there from 2018 and the keyboard parts and the drums and stuff. I totally changed that, rearranged it, remixed it, made it kind of glitchier and noisier, and added some of the samples I had used from another updated version I had done recently also of It's No Game, which also I haven't sort of released this. And I'm not sure if or when I will. But so that I decided to include on this new album. Which hasn't been released yet. As the opener, it's a short track. And then there are a number of improvisations using, like I said, the calculator and the noise, analog noise synth. It's very abstract. And I did a number of beats. There are all different kinds of beats on it that I made in different ways. Some actually from the calculator itself, and some from Logic. Different electronic beats used in different ways, different effectors, different kinds of things, very much layered and complex. And so some of it's quite noisy like that and has beats, and then it goes kind of ambient or like ambient noise. There's some spoken word in the background. There's also some improvisational performances sort of added to the background from actual performances I had done recently, improvisationally. And it should be fun. So I do maybe one, max of 2 live shows a month, sometimes none. But I do have both, actually November, December have been decided at Shimokitazawa, and we'll see about other shows. In terms of this Dark Shroud, we'll see too. Actually, I'm performing for the first time in a long time as Marc Lowe at the next event, because I just decided to do that. The last event, I guess you could say, was Marc Lowe, sort of, but I sort of advertised my solo set as This Dark Shroud. And the lines become more and more blurred between the two, and that's maybe good, and I'm going to talk about that in this essay. I'm actually still working through it as it happens real time, in a sense. You just talk about the weather. This weather is weird. I'm in my room now. I'm wearing this jacket. It's slightly chilly, I guess. I'm not even sure that's the thing. I don't know whether it's cold or hot anymore, but like today, in the last couple of days in Tokyo, it's been hot, almost hot, or at least warm, or at least pleasant enough that if I bring this in the morning or the afternoon, it's too warm for it. This November, I mean, it's weird, We're 3 days after Halloween. And my memory of any Halloween in recent history, including last year, unless I'm remembering it wrong, is that Halloween time, it's pretty cold or it's chilly. You need a long sleeve shirt, you need a jacket at least, or a sweater or something. And it's been hot. I wake up in the morning, I say, ooh, it's warm. I open the curtains, and like the sun comes in. Nice that we're having sunny weather, but it's like, whoa, it's warm. And I go outside, and it's like, I'm taking my jacket off. I walk for 5 minutes, I'm hot with the jacket on. This isn't really a heavy jacket. It doesn't have any inner lining, this jacket. This is a spring or autumn jacket, and we're not in autumn. It's the beginning of November already. So this weird global warming / El Nino weather, whatever the heck it is, it's too warm for November. And I'm afraid it's going to suddenly, like one day I'll wake up, maybe tomorrow or next week, and it'll be freezing cold suddenly, you know? And actually we did have a couple cold days in between, so who knows? And today I taught, I was doing Ziggy Stardust period in my David Bowie class. I'm doing David Bowie class this semester. Actually, I have 3 sections of it in talking about Ziggy Stardust. And, you know, that album opens with 5 years, right? Only 5 years. And like I said, you know, we'll see. I mean, in 5 years, between all of we're basically in World War III now, aren't we? Or something like that, you know? So I didn't want to talk politics, but between this and the way that things are heating up, quite literally and metaphorically, we'll have to see. 5 years. 100 seconds, 90 seconds. Next year, January, it's going to go down to what? 80, 70, 60? We'll see. Have a great weekend. It's the weekend. In Tokyo, it's Friday night. That's why I'm doing this talk. Because I felt like it. I'm not too tired. Haven't done one in a while. You know, I'm like, who's my audience? What language should I use? I'm not going to subtitle this. The AI can give you Japanese subtitles or Swahili or whatever language, I guess. French, Spanish. So I don't need to subtitle it. It's certainly, they're not perfect, but you can get the gist, maybe, hopefully, of what I've said in English. If you're watching in Japanese or some other language, this talk is not, you know, I don't think I need to spend 2 weeks subtitling it. It's just a casual talk. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. And I hope everyone has a pleasant and probably warm November weekend. I'll see you soon. See everyone soon. Thanks. Take care. And be sure to listen to the new Rolling Stones album and the new Beatles song, which used AI technology to make John Lennon's voice sound better from an old tape. They call it the Last Beatles song. It's so ridiculous. The Last Beatles song is not a song that was made from a very old demo that John Lennon recorded when he was still alive, and they added some instrumentation. It's a remix using modern technology. Let's, call it what it is, but hey, that's cool. Hackney Diamonds is a real album, right? Made by real musicians who are still living. That's cool. As for me, I'm moving into the future. Whilst from time to time, how can I say this? Acknowledging the past and the lessons learned from the past. Hence, I do not repeat them. And it's too bad that we, as a society, continue repeating the same stupid mistakes. The war to end all wars, right? Denuclearization, right? I said I wasn't going to talk politics. I better end this talk quickly. Thanks very much. Peace. Be well. Marc Lowe signing off from Tokyo, Japan.